Have you ever noticed that marketing advice almost always starts with an activity? Should I start a podcast? Should I write a book? Should I post on LinkedIn? Should I launch a YouTube channel? When I hear people ask those questions, I have to acknowledge that it's impossible for me to answer when I don't know what their goal is. So instead, I ask a different question. What outcome are you hoping to achieve? That's the biggest difference between how I think and how most marketers think. Every activity should be evaluated by whether it moves you towards the outcome that you actually want. In this episode, I'm going to show you how starting with the outcome changes every marketing decision you make. I've known for many years now that my brain works differently, but for a long time, I assumed everyone thought this way. I actually found it strange when people couldn't see where the steps that they were taking would eventually lead. My brain immediately jumps to the outcome, to that end goal. If someone suggests an activity, I naturally ask, where does this lead? Why are we doing this? Will this actually produce the results that we're hoping for? And I have a hard time taking action just because someone tells me it's the next step. I need to understand how it fits into the bigger picture. But once I understand the outcome, then the path becomes obvious and it's much easier to see what steps are missing. So a simple example I'll share, it has nothing to do with marketing, but it will help illustrate the point. So at church, I once had the assignment to coordinate cleaning the building every week. The goal wasn't to create a sign-up sheet. The goal was to make sure that the church was clean every Sunday. Now, a sign-up sheet might accomplish that, but it might not. So instead of asking people to volunteer, I assigned people. And I sent reminders by text. And I would assign more people than we actually needed because I knew that some wouldn't be able to come. Now, every Saturday, the building was clean. Now, since then, I've watched other people have that same assignment, and they passed around the sign-up sheet. Some weeks, only a few people showed up, and it was the same people. And other weeks, the building wasn't clean very well. So they had the same assignment, but they had a different outcome. The difference wasn't effort or desire to help. It was just starting with the outcome and then working back from it. And that's exactly the same way I think about marketing. If someone asks, should I start a podcast? I don't just answer with a yes or no. I ask them, what do you want your podcast to accomplish? Do you want new people to discover you? Do you want to build relationship with guests? Do you want to nurture an audience that already knows you? So each of those are completely different outcomes. And each answer will lead to different advice that I'd share. A podcast can be an incredible relationship building tool. If you're inviting people that you want to build a relationship with to be on your podcast, this is a fantastic idea. And I might say, yeah, go for it. But if you're expecting thousands of dream clients to discover you through podcast search, that's not likely, and I would recommend against it. It depends on the outcome. Now, let's talk about writing a book. Should I write a book? Now, books are valuable. I've read books that have completely changed how I think. But before you spend a year or two writing one, ask yourself, what outcome am I expecting? Do you simply want to become an author? Do you think the book is going to generate clients? Do you have a plan for getting your book into the hands of your dream clients? The answers to those questions will completely change whether writing a book is the right next step. The same principles applies everywhere. Should you post on social media? Maybe. What outcome are you trying to achieve? If your goal is nurturing people who already know you, social media can be great. If your goal is attracting people who've never heard of you before, social media isn't the best recommendation. So you can look at the same activities but have different outcomes as your goal, and you're going to get a different answer. People often come to me convinced that they should start a YouTube channel, and I ask them, why? What do you want your YouTube channel to do for your business? For some people, I tell them not to start one. For others, it's exactly the right move. Now let's talk about something else that's a challenge. It's a big mistake that I see people make, and they never define what success looks like. They stay busy, they create content, they go to networking events, they launch podcasts, they write books, they build beautiful websites. They're constantly doing things, but then after 2 or 3 years, they're frustrated. Not because they didn't work hard, but because they never identified the outcome that those activities were supposed to produce. Activity doesn't create success. Success comes when you've achieved the outcome you are actually pursuing. So here's another example that's completely changed the way I think about marketing. So often people ask me, Should I post on Facebook? Should I build an email list? Should I start a podcast? Should I use YouTube? And again, I can't answer that question until I know the outcome that they're trying to achieve. The first distinction I make is this: are you trying to market or are you trying to nurture? Those are two completely different goals. Marketing means attracting people who've never heard of you before, but nurturing means building a relationship with people who already know you. So once you're clear on which one you're trying to accomplish, whether you're marketing or nurturing, then the platform for each becomes easier to choose. So for example, your email list is one of the best nurturing tools there is. People on your list already know you. They're interested in what you have to say. Facebook can also be a great nurturing platform. Your friends, your followers, your existing connections. When you post there, you're staying top of mind. But now let's talk about marketing. If your goal is attracting new people, there are really only three approaches. You can go viral, you can interrupt people with paid ads, or you can help people find answers that they're searching for. So those three approaches produce very different results. If you have something go viral, you're reaching a lot of people, but none of them are going to become your dream clients. If you're running paid ads, you're interrupting people and starting your relationship on the wrong foot. Now they're annoyed and they don't trust you. Even if you put ads in front of the right audience, they put up their defenses, and so you're working to take them down and to build trust. If you're creating searchable content, people find you because they're already looking for your help. They're already asking questions, and you're just providing the answers. And this creates a completely different relationship. So when someone asks, should I use Facebook or should I start a podcast or build an email list? I ask that same question about what's your goal, and then the answer dictates the problem. Is it for nurturing? Is it for marketing? When you know the answer to that question, you know the outcome, then the answer becomes obvious. I start with transformation and then I work backwards. Who needs that transformation? What do they search for? What category do I then want to become known for? And once I know the category, or I call it a branch because of my tree analogy, I then find all the questions or all the leaves that are on that branch. Those leaves become the individual questions that my dream clients are already asking online. That's where the tree model came from. I didn't create it because I wanted a clever analogy. I created it because I needed a way to work backwards from the outcome. The outcome is category ownership. The branches show me where I need to build authority. The leaves show me exactly what content to create. So that's why I never sit down and ask, what should I make a video about today? My dream clients have already answered that question. They're asking those questions every day, and my job is simply to answer them until I become the obvious authority on that branch. That's the framework behind everything I teach. So if there's one principle that I want you to remember, it's don't start with the activity, start with the outcome, and then work backwards. And when you're clear about the outcome, the right activities become surprisingly obvious. So with that understanding of why I always start with the outcome, the next step is learning how to turn that thinking into a strategy. And that's what I cover in this episode called Thought Leadership Starts Here. I'm going to show you how I work backwards from the outcome of category ownership to identify the right audience, the right branch, and the right questions to answer so that your content leads to predictable thought leadership. I'll see you in the next episode.